What's up, guys? So I just attended the Amazon FBA Miami Sellers Conference this past weekend, and I spoke to dozens of sellers ranging from newbies to guys doing millions of dollars a month, and they all came to me with their credit questions. So I figured I'd put together this video with the 6 most common questions that I got because I'm sure many other sellers are dealing with the same issues. So first, why did I get a low 0% interest business credit card approval? And it's probably the most common question that I got because they think if they have a 700 score and they have an Amex charge card with a high limit, they're going to get the same type of approvals on the 0% business side. But that is just not the case at all. There's a lot more that goes into those. And the most common reason why I saw there was a low approval was because their credit limits were just too low, especially with the younger guys who may have only a 2 or 3 or 5K limit and they wanted to go out and apply for business cards and they just didn't get the limits that they were looking for. So definitely recommend having at least 30K in personal limits before applying for business, minimum 15K. And if you're under 15K, I definitely recommend building out your personal credit profile first. And I have a guide that I'll link in the description with the best cards to build out your personal credit profile. Next thing is if you have no pre-existing relationship with the bank, so meaning you just go apply online or you just walk into a bank and apply for a card without ever working with them at all. Used to in the past be able to get high approvals this way, but that's just not the case anymore. You need at least 1 to 3 months of a relationship, which basically means having an account with them and keeping some money in there and some activity before going ahead and applying. Third, you just have too many inquiries in your account. You've applied for credit too much and you never went ahead and removed any of these inquiries. And then third is your profile is too young. So if you've only got like 2 years, under 2 years of age, it's really going to be tough to get high approvals. Ideally, you'll want a bit more, but I would say 2 is kind of like the minimum of what you would need to get decent business card approvals. So why did Amex cut my limits? So this is common, especially during Q4, as people just increase their spend a lot. So one of them is because they start using their personal cards because they're maxed out on their business. So when they use their personal cards, their utilization goes up, and then that's going to drop their score significantly. And then Amex sees that as a risky behavior because your score went from a 750 down to a 600, and then Amex will kind of go ahead and cut your limits on those. Second is irregular spending patterns. So if you're spending too much out of nowhere or too little out of nowhere, then Amex will see this as suspicious and they're going to cut your limits as well. And third is just pure randomness. Sometimes Amex just something goes off in the algorithm and then they're just going to cut your limits, and you'll go from 120K limit on a gold or a plum or a platinum down to 20 and just completely destroy the ability to run your business, which is why actually a lot of people end up coming to work with me right after that. But if that's the case and you do get financially reviewed or thrown in Amex jail, it's just best to go to another bank and start building up new lines with them because it can take months or even years to get back to where you were with Amex. So how do I remove hard inquiries and which ones can I remove? So you can remove all hard inquiries not tied to open personal accounts, which basically means any inquiry that you get from applying for a business credit card or any personal inquiries where you did not get approved or did not accept. So like any time you go apply for car loans or home loans and you get a ton of inquiries, you can wipe all of those out. And the way that you remove them, you can either call or send letters to the credit bureaus to dispute the inquiries. And there's tons of videos online that you can check out. I'll probably have one shortly soon. And if you want done for you inquiry removal, we've got a solid team. You can go into the description and check that out. So how do you do travel hacking with credit card points? So I'll show you my favorite sites, which is Seats.aero for flights, Rooms.aero for hotels, and then points.me if you're kind of a beginner with flights, you don't really know how to use the transfer portals. They're really good for teaching you how to kind of set everything up in that regard, but they do miss out on a lot of good deals there. So here's an example of a flight of my hotel that I got. I was on the 24th floor of penthouse where I got it literally for over half off for only $120 a night, literally in downtown Miami, right on the water, which is a pretty nice view where I use Rooms.aero to kind of book the flight and use my Chase points to transfer. So how do I get a business line of credit? So you need at least an aged LLC of 2 years. The more, the better. And usually you can get a line of credit of about 10% of the previous year's revenue, sometimes a bit more, depending on the relationship that you have with the bank. But if you really want to get the highest limits, I would definitely recommend the bank that you have the relationship with. Chase is solid, or even some more locally regional banks. But you do need to have usually a good high level banker to kind of help you out with the process and getting these high approvals, since banks are a lot more strict when it comes to line of credits compared to credit cards, since it's cash access. So why is Chase capping my limit? So typically with a lot of guys on Amazon, they'll be close to 150K in limits with Chase, and it's your limit across all your LLCs if you have multiple businesses. And Chase won't give you above 150K unless you have tax documents and you have a really strong relationship with them and a good banker that kind of can authorize that approval. So yeah, so you need to have a really good banker and tax returns, and I have great bankers at Chase that can do that if you need one. And brings back to the question of the Chase Ink Premier, which is a common card in Amazon FBA, but I would definitely be cautious about that if your goal is to get maximum 0%, because I see it a lot of times where if you have, say, a 50 or 100K limit on the Premier, you're going to be capped at the amount that you can get at 0% on the other cards, where you can only get 50 to 100 at 0% if you have a really big limit on the Premier. So that is something to keep in mind with Chase. And those are basically all the questions that people have, the most common ones. If you have any other ones, feel free to DM me on Twitter or email me below. If you're looking to get $100,000 to $300,000 in 0% interest business credit cards, you can book a time below on the calendar and kind of see how much you qualify for and what that process would look like. And if you thought this was helpful, make sure to like and subscribe.